So good afternoon. We'll call this Agenda and Priorities meeting to order for October 17th. And we'll begin with the land acknowledgements. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on. And next, I just want to proclaim October 17th to 21st Small Business Week. So we want to acknowledge all the great business owners in our community and hope the community continues to support them. It's been a long couple of years for everybody coming through COVID, and we appreciate everything that they do for our community and within our community, and the support that they give to events and volunteer activities and everything. So I'd like to recognize all of them. And we'll move on to 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor Barclay. Two, administration would identify as emergent items. One, less so, but certainly would be of interest of council. I'll let you decide if you would agree. 3.5, council board of committee appointments in advance of your organizational meeting next week. Sorry I didn't get your listing into your agenda package. That's the non-emergent item according to CAO, but again, up to your discretion. 3.6, cemetery vandalism update. And an in-camera item 7.1, Discovery Wildlife Park Road. It's for the MGA 1972, FOIP 161C3, please.
May we also add a in-camera organizational scan as well, CEO Becker?
Sure.
I don't know all the FOIP details
sure.
and stuff.
Yeah, we can pull that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Could I please have someone make a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? Perfect. And we'll move on to 3.1 with Director Kennedy and the sound wall.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. So we thought we'd just provide, now that the sound wall is completed, we did do a couple readings, 4 readings along the wall prior to construction and takedown of the wood wall. Average decibel readings along the wall ranged from 60 to 71. Really all depends on what traffic is going down the highway at the time, so it is kind of a hit and miss, but we wanted to just see if it did a comparison to when the concrete wall got installed. So we did go back out once the wall was completed. Average decibel readings was 58 to 63, 64. So dropped it a couple decibels in a reading, I guess, just for that in comparison. So that is your, relative to conversation to classroom chatter. That's kind of how that rates. So we did make a bit of difference, but we also, I think, made a lot bigger visual improvement, though, more than anything. So, yeah, just a quick update on that.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? It does look good, that wall. Mm-hmm. Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I don't remember my decibel stuff, but I think they're exponential, aren't they? Like, it's not just that you reduce from 70 to 68, or that's a fairly large reduction, I think, if you.
Yeah, I guess in the memo there is a sound level chart. So and once you get above 80, that's that Freightliner, boiler room type of decibel reading. And as you go down in the decibels, it becomes more of a softer.
Right, but my point is from 70 to 140, it's not double, it's exponential how it works. Like it's not double classroom chatter. So when you make a reduction, which the maximum, if we could scroll back, that's a significant reduction, was from 71 to 63. That's a big reduction. 63 point, no, I'm going with the max. About 8 on, that's big. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Heistad?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think it looks great. I've walked by it a couple times. It looks really awesome. It's going to be there longer than me. And the only thing I'd say is, looking at budget is how we, around the gardenings, kind of clean it up in the new year. I guess I'm assuming that we do that, but needs a little love. But it looks, overall, the wall looks really good. I think it makes it look really pleasing from the highway. But thanks a lot for the work.
It's only 50 years out. You may still be here.
No, I won't be here.
Could be.
Guarantee.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and through to Director Kennedy. Again, I echo those comments that job well done. Looks really great. It's a real advertising. When you drive down Highway number 2, QE2 now, it looks great. I was questioned on a number of occasions about those decibel readings, so thank you for getting those pre and post. I think it's very important to show to the community that we did make a difference with the money that we spent, both visually and noise-wise. So thank you again to you and your crew.
Okay. We'll just have a motion then to accept this as information, please.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Messaros. All in favor? Great. And we'll move on to 3.2 with Director Jenkins and the recreation cost recovery.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So this is just a follow-up information report to discussion last week at the regular council meeting. The agenda includes excerpts from the town's State of Recreation, Leisure and Culture report, which provides numbers from 2017 respecting expenditures and revenues in the various recreation-related budget categories, as well as a comparison across various comparable municipalities and that percent revenue recovery. As was discussed last week, we are generally on the low side of cost recovery. I was going to put together a year-to-date, but it's challenging because we don't factor in the utility costs and those types of things until the end of the year. So in the new year, we can provide an update for 2022. 2020 and 2021 are kind of anomaly years on both the revenue and the facility operation side. So, but we can certainly bring those numbers in early 2023.
Does anyone have any comments over this? So we're basically subsidizing $2.5 million, correct, on 2017 numbers?
Yeah, correct, if you're looking at the revenues and expenses. I did just did a bit of a breakdown. So revenues does include the contributions from Red Deer County, as well as all of the leases, bookings, advertising, all of that revenue that's associated with those budget categories as well.
So it's something to consider going forward. Look at the cost recovery from other communities compared to where we are at. We're a little bit on the low side, and I guess that's a philosophy that we can discuss at some point in time. But I'm assuming, Director Jenkins, that some of that's going to be sponsorship, especially, or a lot of it anyway.
I guess, sponsorship as we currently do it with advertising does offset operational costs, likely with a new facility, those types of things. Sponsorship's going to offset your initial capital more so than ongoing operating.
I'm wondering for budget purposes when we get there in November, if you could, do some projections and, see maybe some fee increases and how that impacts, and if we have a target in mind, or you have a target in mind where we should be on that cost recovery, and maybe that's where we should be. I guess we spoke about that last time a little bit, like the philosophy between do we want recreation to be affordable and accessible, and is that the important part of our philosophy? So I don't know if you can give that some thought, and council can give it some thought as well. Councillor Bates?
So if I look at, I can't remember page here, page 71, it looks like with the motorhome at the bottom, where it has the breakdown of shortages in the different categories, the biggest one is parks. And I'm wondering from the other communities, does anybody have a way of making revenue? That
I wouldn't think large scale. No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. No, I appreciate the numbers. I think it's good coming into budget and budget deliberations so that we're all kind of trying to wrap our head around the big picture. That helps me and sometimes going over it, but I think there's always a lot of good news, how we communicate with our community or public about the work that we're doing. I think that's how I look at the numbers and how do we project that and when we're meeting the public. So thanks for the information.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, I'll please have somebody make a motion to accept this as information.
Mayor Barclay, I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried, and we will move on to 3.3 with Director Jenkins and the Public Art Policy.
All right, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we wanted to bring this draft public art policy forward for information to council prior to budget deliberations coming up in November, as this would be something that would show up as a new expenditure within that budget. Earlier this year, council directed administration to research and develop a draft policy to support public art in the community. A draft policy has been developed. However, in the absence of annual budget allocation, we won't move forward with the formal adoption or approval of the policy without the associated allocation. So the policy outlines standards for sustainable funding, oversight and governance, with the possible creation of a new ad hoc committee or the utilization of existing committee. It has yet been to be determined which staff member or function would take responsibility for administrating the committee and or associated projects, as well as maintenance and donations. So the current policy attached contemplates installations in or on town property. If we're to move forward either before adoption or as part of a strategy, we'd likely have to look at whether we want to include installation on private property, which would be murals, those types of installations, which would add a bit more administration in terms of the negotiation and creation of agreements with private property owners. But we will move forward including the estimated financial impact as an operating project in 2023, unless council directs us otherwise. So the current policy identifies a minimum $20,000 annual allocation plus 1% of capital projects over $250,000. So that is about an additional $40,000. So looking at $60,000 a year to utilize towards these projects. Some of the research that I did, that to hire an artist to paint a mural, you're looking in the ballpark of $20 to $60 a square foot. So I used the TNT building as an example. If we did a mural on the front, basically the portion from the street to where the trees are, that would be a mural in the $20,000 to $60,000 range based on that square footage. So just information at this point and comment if council has any thoughts, or if we should or should not include it in our draft budget.
Thanks, Director Jenkins. So I'm a little confused just from going through this. So are these funds only for art in public spaces and maybe our town-owned buildings?
That's how the policy is currently worded. If we would have to add an additional section if we wanted to contemplate things like murals on private buildings and how we would manage that, what kind of commitments and agreements we would require from a property owner if they agreed to have a mural. For example, on their building, are they willing to commit a 10-year period, allow maintenance to take place, those types of things that would go along with it.
So with, like, just go into number 7 here in the policy. So the project must be self-funded, so I guess we're kind of looking at more than one thing here, like somebody may want to come and want to do a mural on the side of the arena. Like, would that be initiated by a community group potentially? Or,
Ideally, the committee would be
okay,
identifying the project. They would take public input as to where or what. I think one of the sort of key actions of that committee would be we would have to develop a strategy of some sort as to what, what are we focusing on? What is public art? Are we looking at, certain portions within buildings, exterior to buildings? Is it largely focused as a mural project, that sort of thing? We don't have a public art strategy even that we would be utilizing these funds to put forward at this point.
okay. So then in 7C, Director Jenkins, like citizens organizations will be responsible for the costs associated with the artwork.
So those are community initiated. So
Okay.
if someone came, for example, the project, I guess, on the coffee cottage, if they had wanted to do that on the town office, and came up with the plan and came forward and said, we want to do this, that's sort of that project there, as opposed to the committee utilizing the funds within. We've been approached on other times about things like statue installation, that if a family wants to erect a statue in a park, who decides if that's okay and appropriate and what that statue should look like? So the committee would be able to be involved in that in terms of evaluating that.
So do you see down the road, somebody does something today, whether it's a statue or whatever, and let's move out 50, 60 years, or even 20, 30 years, and that needs replacing or maintaining. So the funding that's within this policy that we're talking about, that would go to repairing that, or would it replacing? Like, what if that family if it's a family that happens to do that and that family's not around anymore 20 or 30 years from now, or?
Yeah, so so the policy outlines, so maintenance and care of the artwork is then accepted by the town, similar to infrastructure. So if someone installs a statue 50 years from now, it would be the determination of the art policy. Does it need to be rehabilitated, or are we gonna remove it and get rid of it, basically?
Okay, I'm being a pain here, but
Yeah.
does that, I think the policy we have in place for other things, like say the cookhouse as an example down in Centennial Park and signage and stuff, didn't we implement a policy where it's up to the organization that did that they need to maintain that going forward?
No, so we still, and that's something we've talked about it, particularly in parks, that we haven't done well in the past, where, groups build a playground or build a cook shack and we don't have the agreements in place.
But I thought last term though, you brought a policy forward where that was.
Go for it.
I can interject. Just a good example would have been the disc golf.
Yeah.
Is the agreement that we have in place with the Kinsmen is that we maintain, like, once they've installed it and did all the install, we now maintain. We do give them notice if there is a change going to be happening. And also, I believe we got into an agreement with the new playground as well with the Kinsmen. So again, it's just notification that I think is where you're going with is that we don't walk away and say, don't care about the owner anymore or the person that originally put it in. We do provide them that notice.
Yeah, I always worry about the sustainability of something, right? Like somebody does something today, but 50 years from now, that
But no, typically.
family or whoever may not
Yeah.
be here anymore, and, yeah.
Typically, the process is we take the responsibility for that asset, basically, once it's installed.
Okay. And my last comment is, I would like to see a separate committee. I know you've looked at the Community Services Standing Committee for this, but I would like to see an art committee.
Yep.
Any other comments? Councillor Heistad?
No, you go first, Dale.
I'm very happy to see this. I guess, first off for me is that with the committee that already exists that helped work to bring the welcoming mural on the Coffee Cottage to fruition, is already some other projects and some things in the works with finding grants and that for other installations within the town. How could, or what would be the possibilities of you know, working together to make sure that there is no, that just so it functions well, and then we don't end up running into a situation where where they would be combating for certain spaces or anything like that. Because if there's also town properties available for them to be able to maybe work with, that would be a good thing. So I guess that's one of my, I know that there obviously is some things in the works already, so how would we approach that?
I think we'd probably need to, you know, have a conversation. This committee would be like a council-appointed committee, reporting back to council. However, if there's already sort of that group filling the need of looking at murals on private businesses, maybe that's something that's, you know, already kind of taken legs, and that we would focus on art on and in town buildings to start with the committee could be an option as well.
Sorry, Mayor Barclay, through to Director Jenkins. Would there be a possibility, or could we explore that maybe some of the people, not necessarily myself and Councillor Heistad, but other people that are involved with it, that there might be an opportunity for them, rather than us having, you know, 2 or 3 committees really doing the same thing? Maybe there's an opportunity for them or to apply to the committee.
Yeah. It would be a publicly open
Yeah.
committee, same as other committees of council. I don't.
Yeah, Mayor Barclay, to Councillor Dunham, I know we're talking about logistics. Probably our biggest question would be, not to speak for administration ultimately, but is budget. You know,
Right.
Do we want numbers in the budget? I think logistics with the policy and the terms of reference of the committee will certainly be established, and how that interconnection with the community works would be certainly to be determined. But probably our biggest discussion we're having is, do we want dollars in the budget? And you don't have to say yes, no right now, but if this is a priority of council, likely you may want to try to work some dollars into the budget,
Right.
2023.
One more, Mayor Barclay, through CO Becker. And I guess for me, that trying to understand those logistics would therefore then bring me to my final, is that I like the idea, but I personally feel that perhaps the number's too high at this point in time, that 1%, because I know that there are private grants and funding available, so I would rather see that being leveraged than too much coming from the town budget. So that's where I was going with that, so thank you.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. Good comments, Councillor Dunham. How I'm looking at the mechanics, it looks good on paper for now. I think that if we do, you know, if we have a separate committee, I think that would, for me, that makes sense. You want individuals that understand art and understand that what may work best in the community. I do see that if it's a separate group, I think I'm confident that the other groups would be able to work with the town and a new committee. So, and as to the number that Councillor Dunham had brought up, you know, I think I look at it as budget item, but I don't disagree with him as well. So thanks for the work on this, Director Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Through to Director Jenkins. First of all, I agree with all the great comments that my colleagues have given today. I've got a question just about the wording under Call for Artists number 8. And I don't understand, artists will be invited to engage in the installation of newly commissioned and major capital public art projects. To me, that wording sounds like the art has already been done. But then underneath the subpoints A and B, it's about more about the call for proposals. And so I'm just wondering if I'm reading something wrong there. Okay. And then let me know if I need to be educated.
Councillor Wing?
Excuse me, thank you, Mayor Barclay, and through to Director Jenkins. I appreciate this work. I think you've done a good job. I want to just, I guess the only thing that I wanted to ask about was the decision then to only include taxpayer dollars in the public art budget fund every year, as opposed to, I look at the city of Lacombe, and over the years, the work that the city, when they were much smaller as a town, did relative to inviting public sector or private sector partners, private sector contributions, whether it be a new construction project or whether it's a new developer coming into town that's looking at a big project. I just would like to see the flexibility within the policy then to say we would explore the expectations moving forward, I think, around that. I just don't want to lose it. I think there's opportunities to make that pool of money bigger by people or organizations other than just our taxpayers. Thank you.
Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I think I have kind of two rhetorical questions, which I don't expect an answer to right now. One would be, I assume there would be some guidance developed for the committee as it evolved to avoid some of the pitfalls that we've seen happen to other communities. The two to come to mind are both in Calgary, with the one that offended Indigenous people because they didn't do the right thing and they put up stuff that offended them. And the other was the Blue Ring, which nobody seems to be able to justify. Well, okay, I wouldn't spend $100,000 on it, but anyway, that's one area that committee would get some guidelines of how to not fall into the pitfalls. And the other would be, if we are designating a portion of capital, would it, or has it been in other communities 100% of the projects that are capital funded, or would there be anything that would not contribute, i.e. if the community was borrowing the entire amount for that capital project? Or I'm just trying to envision there might be a huge project that you're stretched to try and fund, rec facility, whatever, and some of that needs some public art in it. So just that we would look at that and determine whether there's any exemptions for some reason that I haven't even thought of. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to Director Jenkins. Just a quick question. Did you investigate the town of Stony Plain? They're known for their murals across Alberta, probably across Canada, as the town of many murals. Did you have an opportunity to follow up to see what their model looks like?
I'll have to look back through which various communities we pulled from, but I can let you know.
Okay, do you want some direction as far as budget, or will that be discussed?
I was going to say, I
At
think we have
budget.
enough general that we should include it, maybe back it off a little bit to start with, but that there still is appetite to move ahead.
Yeah, certainly we'll tag it, Mayor Barclay, Council, on the listing for Council to consider. You may want to build a policy around a number, so it might change the dynamic of the policy with just a number for year one, perhaps. So I think once you see the whole budget, you'll be able to determine
Sure.
what allotment you want to allocate.
Okay, and I think, to keep in mind too, Director Jenkins, as you said, like during one mural could be, $60,000. I know there's one kind of in the works right now that's around 65, so it doesn't take long before that budget is spent in a year. And maybe, it's not just about murals, right? It could be like public art in our public buildings and purchasing art to hang on walls and that kind of thing. So it encompasses a lot of things. So I'll just have someone make a motion then that we accept this as information.
I'd so move, Mayor Barclay, that we accept for information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor? Okay, and thanks again, Director Jenkins, for all your work on that. And we will move into 3.4, budget deliberations with Director Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I just wanted to bring a report forward to discuss some budget dates. So each year, primarily in that last week of November, that last full week of November, we earmark 3 full days to go over budget discussions. So I just would like to see if those dates work for everyone. So initially, it's tentatively picked for the 22nd to the 24th of November. So that is the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, perfect. How does that work for everybody?
I'll be honest, I gotta be working those days, and I'm in Jasper, so pretty rough.
Doesn't sound like work.
Yeah, I know. I know, and so the thing is, I know if I need to be back like the Thursday, Friday, I can be back the Thursday, Friday, if.
24th and 25th?
Yeah, that's what I know. I just come home on the Wednesday.
Okay.
What about the week prior? Is that too soon, Director Vickers?
So we could do the week prior, Mayor Barclay, if that.
I don't have my phone in front of me in my calendar, but
That actually won't work. There's ICS training for.
Okay.
And Mountain View Water Commission on the 16th.
Mayor Barclay, so Thursday, Friday could work, and then we'd have to earmark the following maybe Monday for anything kind of left.
or Tuesday, maybe.
We could do Tuesday, we could do Thursday, Friday, and then a Tuesday if we need to.
That works for me.
20, and then the 29th, yeah. You're good.
So the Thursday, Friday, and the Tuesday of the following week. Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
so we'll have someone make a motion then that we approve November 24, 25, and 29th.
I'll make that
I was
motion.
counting. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. All in favor?
Thank you.
So 9 to, well, probably 9 to 3-ish, right? 9 to 4. We're going to do that here? Yep, perfect. Okay, great. Then we will move to, sorry, Councillor Messaros.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I just kind of have a general comment that I would like to say. And I'm just wondering, maybe at our deliberations, would we be able to set the dates for the next deliberations at the meeting at the end of November? So kind of a year out, so we can have that already marked off in our, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move into 3.5 and the board committee.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I'll introduce this topic and see where council wishes to go with it. But so next Monday, you're going to have your regular council meeting, but in advance of that meeting is your organizational meeting. As per the MGA, you are required to have one organizational meeting around that time, give or take a week or two. That's where you get to just to be better organized, I suppose. You get to look at your committees, making sure that they're still fitting for you, meeting your expectations. You review your external committee members, applicants, and you reassign those that are best suited to represent you on the committees. You may wish to discuss seating arrangements of council, but some of the finer detail is part of your organizational meeting. But the biggest topic usually is council's direct appointments, where you want to sit on committees, and you have that discussion. I've witnessed in my time different philosophies regarding committees. So some councils appoint or reappoint council members based on what is going on, and continuity, consistency, to better, to best serve. Some councils, no, we want you to learn the role of council and have opportunity to sit on different committees. So, or sometimes it's a mixed bag, but it's usually an open dialogue of council on what you feel is best representing council. Often we would, and likely what I'll do in the morning is we'll provide you an open sheet, and what we've done is have you even mark up. I haven't talked to you, Mayor Barclay, but sometimes we would have council just to mark where they wish to represent and kind of mold it based on your interests. Again, I don't want to interject on where council wishes to go. So that's one place, or we just talk about where you're situated currently and confirm where you should be. So looking for feedback on how you wish to proceed, but also opening up the dialogue with you, council, on what is working and what isn't working for you on this council listing.
So first of all, let's maybe think, everybody's got the list in front of them. Are there any committees there that you don't think council should be a part of to start with? And Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, actually, there's been times where I question structure and board structure, but I do believe for myself, it's been a good opportunity. I do like consistency. I think what's important of that is how I'm looking at it is if you do 2 years, and it's a good 2 years, I think there's a better transition that way. And if there's, like, some of us work full-time as well, if we want to shadow or anything like that, or have an opportunity to do that, I would think that would be a good opportunity for us to learn something new. Personally, I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I'd like to improve on some of the areas that I've worked on the last year. I think that it's a year today that we were elected, and I just look at it as incremental improvements as a committee member. Thanks.
Yeah, I see some committees where people have been on there 10 years, right? And other people switch. I don't know. I like the continuity myself, but anybody else have any thoughts? Councillor Wing?
Excuse me, I agree. I think the continuity is important. I agree the learning is important. There's no doubt about that. So if there's an opportunity for more information to come from some of the committees back to council for the rest of us, I think that might be helpful. But certainly, I think it takes a year with some of these, especially some of the smaller not-for-profit boards that we sit on. It takes a year just to really get up to speed on what the mandate and what the opportunities are for those organizations. So I would be quite fine staying where I am.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I concur. A year's not long enough on these committees. You just sort of get wound up in it, and it is the learning. So I would say a minimum of 2 years. And I'm happy with the committees that I'm sitting on, so thank you.
Once again, I concur, and I'm quite happy with the placements I've got right now. And, to be very honest, on some of them, I'm just really getting my feet underneath me because they don't meet very often. So when you don't have the frequency of some of the others, it will take a while. So I definitely agree 2 years would be wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with 2 years as well. I think, do I need to point out that, like, officially that I've taken over the Transportation Standing Committee, or ask the question anyway, or?
Mayor Barclay to Councillor Messaros, I think it's a good time to have that conversation, just with Councillor Harrison's role with his other personal stuff, that the Councillor Messaros was the alternate, and how does that play on moving forward? And of course, later on the agenda, we will see some correspondence on what's happening with our transportation services. So so you may have that conversation now. What that looks like, it'll tie into next week's assignment to committees. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. With with Councillor Messaros moving up to the primary, I'd be happy to put my name forward to be the alternate on that if there's an opportunity, because a couple, like I mentioned, a couple of the ones that I'm on don't meet, there's a frequency to it, so I definitely have some bandwidth there.
Okay. Just plug it in. Okay, thank you. I'm also wondering, I know some of the committees have 2 people on them, if we should assign an alternate, because sometimes maybe one of those 2 people can't go. And is it good for us to still have 2 representatives there? I know we haven't done that in the past, but, so an alternate. What do you think about that?
Mayor Barclay, what committee, don't mind me asking, what
Well,
committee are you?
Give an example, I know this week I believe there's a Police and Safe Community Committee meeting. Councillor Messaros isn't able to attend, so there's only 1 representative going. Should we have another alternate in place where there's 2 people going? I mean, does that matter, or? I mean, we're not going to this week, but I'm just saying going forward.
Yeah, I think that, I don't think it hurts to have an alternate, because this is where I was stating earlier, it could be an opportunity to learn and transition. That's how I'm looking at it. So you got 2 assistant captains or 3 assistant captains on the team, right? So if that's how I'm looking at it. So I don't have a problem with that on policing. I think that policing is going to be a big subject for us the next couple of years as well. So it's good for us to transition that.
Just trying to look at the other committees that we have 2 people. Like the MDP Advisory Committee, there's 2 people there, so if one of them can't go, we would have another alternate in place. So Councillor Bates and Councillor Wing.
Just on that one, I think that committee is going to be a kind of a temporary thing, and we haven't met yet.
No, I know, but I'm
But I
just
think
saying
it's
that,
temporary. How long is it projected to last?
I would be in the like 24-month type of.
Oh, 2 years?
I would think,
Oh.
being that you guys haven't met
Should
yet,
have
we're
Yeah.
almost a year in, but, and that one might, as an example, is a bit more of a working committee where those committee members are, whether someone can jump in as an alternate, I guess, is up to council.
well, I'd probably leave that up to you. Maybe you to decide whether that would be prudent or not. And just go down the list here and see, yeah, I think that's, and then the Community Economic Development Advisory Group, so Councillor Harrison or Dunham and I are on there, so maybe there should be an alternate there as well, so that we have 2 representatives if somebody's away, or
Are those meetings in the evening, right?
typically 5 o'clock, yeah.
Are we volunteering now, or are we going to have a
No.
different, or meeting after?
Yeah, we're gonna have a meeting next week to
Okay.
slot everybody in. It's just kind of the philosophy of what we want to do with committees where there's 2 people already representing. We've never had an alternate for the representatives, but I find sometimes that person, one of the people, cannot come to a meeting. So do you want to add an alternate, or do we not? And it doesn't matter to me.
I like that idea.
Okay? Okay.
Just a question, Mayor Barclay, why are there 2 council reps on some committees and not the others?
The terms of reference require
Just the
two.
terms of reference?
Yeah.
So what went into the thought around the terms of reference? Like, why do some committees have 2 council reps or 2 town reps? Is there a reason for it, or?
I'll give my opinion. I think it's the depth of what they're doing vis-a-vis, take an example, economic development versus, say, the library board.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
No, there's my opinion as to why. But I think each one has evolved.
CO Becker?
Yeah, I would agree with that logic. The core committees of council include MPC, Community Services Standing Committee, FCSS, emergency management. Yeah, there's like about 6 I'd consider core, really core committees. Additional are added on, but I think the core committees would have representation of at least 2, if not more, 3, 4. You're getting into quorum. And that's kind of the logic is the substance of the discussion, having 2 council reps attending those meetings.
Mayor Barclay, I would, my opinion would be then that we have an alternate. If there's, because if you need 2 people there and if 2 can't be there, then I think you'd want to call up that alternate. So my recommendation would be that on those committees that we have 2 members, that we also name an alternate.
Okay, thanks. And I'll leave the Municipal Development Plan Advisory Committee that you can decide, Director Jenkins, and whether that would be suitable to have an alternate on there. If you feel that it would be difficult, I totally understand.
Mayor Barclay, probably leaning on due to the technicality of it, and it may not provide opportunity. Council can come to any meeting you want and witness it, but the technical component of the MDP review might be difficult for an alternate to occasionally come to those meetings.
Yeah, okay.
We'll certainly
fair
discuss.
enough. Yeah. Okay, so we'll, you've got everything you need? Okay, all right. So we will move on to 3.6, cemetery vandalism with CEO Becker.
So yeah, I'm coming over to Director Kennedy. Just wanted to just have an open discussion with you. You were notified within the morning of, I can't even remember my days, and provide you an email just to inform you of a situation, how we witnessed at the cemetery. Staff have been working on this. I just put it over to Director Kennedy to have some discussion with council.
Sure. Yeah, so late last week, obviously, everyone's aware of the vandalism of the headstones in the older area of the cemetery. This week, starting today and tomorrow, hopefully, we'll finish up Wednesday. We will be cataloging the areas that have been vandalized and then notifying the families that where there's been some major damage to headstones. There has been a few. So we will, unfortunately, I don't have an update on exactly what the numbers are for you, but we will be able to come back to you with more of an idea of how many there was tipped over and how many have actually been vandalized to a state where they need to be either repaired or replaced. So I'll be able to provide you more after, probably by the end of the week.
Well, Director Kennedy, how do we track families? Like we're talking maybe 2, 3, 4 generations.
Mayor Barclay, so really, unfortunately, the only information we have to go on is the information that was given to us when that plot was purchased. So they normally do give a next of kin information, but if that was 50 years ago, it may or may not be completely updated.
So what happens then to repairing? Does that fall on the town of Innisfail? Is that covered by insurance at all, or?
It is not an insurable item that we insure. And unfortunately, our bylaw does state that it would be the responsibility of the owner or the family of the plot.
But what if there's no family? Then we can't leave them broken.
And that would be a question for the CEO and yourself, probably.
Oh, nice, good one.
Thank you.
I guess you can look over here, I guess, Mayor Barclay. I believe we should gather the appropriate information, determine what the extent is of locating family, and we'll report back to you. And council asked, what do we do with those that we cannot find, and certainly go from there. I think, in my own view, it would be, we want the proper acknowledgement of grave sites, and is it a cost of the town? Don't know, maybe community or town or partnership or something, but let's see what we have first before we get into those discussions.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can see, maybe some family not around anymore, or maybe they had no children, or, and so be some complexities to it potentially. Councillor Heistad?
There we go. I don't know what it is. I have no fingertips, I guess. Instruction manual. I'm too cold. Warm heart, though, Gene. I guess my question to CAO Becker would be RCMP, the work going on with the RCMP on it. And is there, I remember when the little hearts, there's a little man on the school went missing, and then on the Innisfail bulletin, there was hundreds of people commenting on it. And I think, I don't know if a reward or anything like that, but just to shake down the individual or individuals that did this, I think there's an opportunity. So I was just wondering what the RCMP has to say right now.
So I guess to Councillor Heistad.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. They have been involved. They were involved the day of. They did put out a public notice to try and find, to gather, I guess, some input on if anybody can come forward. We haven't got an update though from RCMP as to if they have received any additional, but we are working with them to try and, I guess, see what we can find of any information.
Have families come forward at all, Director Kennedy? 'Cause there's a...
Yeah, so Mayor Barclay, I will say that we have had quite a few phone calls, probably since Thursday, Friday, upwards of 50 or 60 phone calls. Mostly it's just people asking what plot are their family members in so they can go check to see if theirs was damaged. I haven't heard any where it was actually a damaged family's plot. I haven't had one of those calls yet, but we are getting quite a few phone calls.
Yeah, there's been lots of people. I was out Friday taking a look, and there was people out there, and saw them Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. Don't know who would do something like that, but anyway, hopefully they'll be caught. Okay, well, thank you for that information, and we don't need a motion to accept that as information, do we? No, not really. Okay. All right, so we will move on to 4.1, correspondence and information. I have a question on the RCMP report. And maybe you could find this out as we discuss victim services going forward, but it says that there were 259 files with victim services unit. Referral scoring in Innisfail provincial, 4 accepted, 23 declined, 2 proactive, 0 requested but not available, and 230 files with no victim. I'm wondering if when we have further discussion about victim services, if we can maybe find out what some of that means.
Mayor Barclay, and the committee meets on Wednesday, so maybe the appointed council reps we could tag it. We can certainly bring this up with the committee. Sergeant Heine will be in attendance to speak to this report directly.
Okay, thank you.
And we can follow that back up with council.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm also curious, like what constitutes a decline? Anything else? Anybody have any comments on? If not, I'll...
Mayor Barclay, the addition to the agenda onto the correspondence is a Legion letter. It's a physical copy before you. I think it's a significant enough piece of that correspondence for council to take a peek at. What else? I mean, I'll put it to Director Jenkins to speak to it.
Sure. So we have received formal notice from the Legion notifying their desire to terminate the operating agreements for the community bus and the PACE buses. As per the agreements, there is a 6-month termination notice clause in those agreements. We did have discussion at our Transportation Committee meeting last week in which Legion representatives gave us the heads up that this was on its way. Administratively, we've begun work looking into alternatives and options for a transition. We'll be meeting again with the Transportation Transportation Committee in the first half of November, and hopefully coming back to council with some recommendations associated with both the community coach and the transition for the operation of the PACE buses.
Thanks, Director Jenkins. Can we talk a little bit more about some of those options, just so council, like some of the discussions went on as far as the coach and maybe what, like people may not understand exactly like the role the Legion has played and what that means for the town and.
Sure, so in terms of our transportation, so we have the community coach, the large bus, which is operated basically as a charter service through the Legion. The town does all the maintenance of the vehicle. The Legion does all the bookings, provides the driver, and works on that front. We presented to the Transportation Committee the statistics, sort of 2022 year to date. I believe it's been booked out 48 trips or something to 25 different groups in the community. So the Transportation Committee had a bit of discussion about sort of the philosophy on that community bus as well. The bulk of the bookings tend to be private. There's Select Tours is a group out of town that provides farm tours, I believe. Councillor Harrison can help me out. But it is also used by, minor hockey clubs, the Eagles. The school uses it periodically. Even some of the groups out of Penhold utilize the bus. So a bit of a conversation there on what is a community bus and what groups should we be booking. There was also direction from the committee for administration to do some research in terms of the competitiveness of the rates on the bus. It was put out, I believe, by the schools that it's actually cheaper to book through Prairie Bus Lines or one of those often than to use the community bus. So whether or not we're really fulfilling a clear need with that community coach. Then on the PACE bus side, I guess just looking for we'll be looking for some options in terms of that service delivery. We've been in touch with Black Falls that operates an on-demand transit service through a contractor, so looking at that model, as well as some options for how we could organize that. So.
Yeah, thank you. So could be something that has an impact on our budget if we're hiring drivers and bringing that service internally to the organization here. And also the community bus, I think was 2010. We were told it was purchased and $450,000. And of course, a lot of community groups, Red Deer County, et cetera, participated in the purchase of that bus. And what's the philosophy around that? Do we want to be in the bus rental business? Replacing that bus would be 500 to probably 800,000 from new to used. And is that even realistic? Likely not. So, and it's getting to the point where if it's going to be sold, that should be considered just because of the value, the residual value at this point in time. So lots to think about. Councillor Heistad.
Your worship, to Director Jenkins, is there any communities that do look after it in-house? Like,
I haven't found any yet. So, for example, Black Falls, Cochrane, and Okotoks all offer an on-demand transit service in their communities. It's all done through the same contracted bus company. Basically, they have an app and a customer service call center that will take calls for bookings, and they provide the drivers for the vehicles and manage that end of it. So we're looking at that option, but yeah, Transportation Committee was on Thursday last week. So.
Thanks.
Will you, for Budget Director Jenkins, bring a model or a couple of models into the budget deliberations and whether we have that service internally and what that means as far as hiring drivers and the rest of it? And
yes, so
okay.
November 10th, we have our next Transportation Committee meeting, so we're hoping to have as much of that information compiled as possible then to hopefully have some recommendations coming to council before your budget deliberations later in the month.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Yeah, just a quick question, kind of slightly off topic. What's the current status of the driver program that we actually, which was going to be non-related to the buses, just to give somebody a ride to an appointment or whatever?
Yeah, so the Drive Happiness program, at this point, we've not been able to secure enough volunteers to launch the program. And that program's specific to seniors and individuals with disabilities. So we will continue to try to recruit volunteers and looking at some different options there. The Transportation Committee did talk about what it looks like to attract like a ride share, like Uber or Lyft or those types of companies into the community. So we'll be looking at that as well, which those are, you know, services that are available to anyone or at any time.
Okay, I'll just have somebody accept the correspondence as information, please.
Mayor Barclay, I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, and we will move into round table with Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Last week after our council meeting, we did a tour with a few of you to the Discovery Wildlife Park to see their light setup, which was quite wonderful. I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to see it when it's actually all in place and to see how many people it actually brings to town. I think it's going to be a wonderful thing, and I really admire what they're trying to do with their outreach into the community to establish partnerships to help bring people to all of our businesses, which I think is just wonderful. The collaboration that group does is fantastic, and that was it. This week I don't have a whole lot going on either. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Wing.
Yep, thank you. Last week participated with the library board in their, we had a special meeting for budget. So we had several budget scenarios presented for consideration. The board is certainly looking forward to presenting their annual highlights to council in the coming weeks. That date is in the process of being set. And work will begin in the coming weeks on the new 5-year plan of service, the last one being completed in 2018. So that's a provincial requirement for the library to get that done. Quite a bit of consultation and work with, I don't know, Director Jenkins' name kept coming up. But it is it's a significant body of work for sure for the library, so that will be starting right away. Chamber board this evening, immediately after this meeting, work progresses on our executive director recruitment, as well as planning for a new date for the awards gala and the upcoming annual general meeting. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bates.
Okay, so yeah, the Discovery Park, I look forward as well to see what it looks like after dark and when it's complete. I also had the Mountain View Water Commission meeting followed by the dam tour. And I said that in a pretty appropriate way, I think. Anybody that hasn't had the dam tour, it's pretty much 100% there for flow control. And they try to maintain a minimum flow through the winter of 16 cubic meters per second, which is not all that much, but prior to the dam being there, it got as low as 4 and probably wouldn't support the communities that are on the river now. And then upcoming, who knows, with climate change, you know what. So the dam is so essential out there, and that is its primary reason. They do have a little side chute that puts out some power, but it's not very much. When that thing is full out running, it's about 3/4 what our solar farm, or what the, not our, but the elemental solar farm produces. Yeah, so it was very interesting. The Mountain View Commission, they're starting to look forward to, not look forward to, but budget. And they're asking the commission members if they have anything to offer specifically with respect to personnel budgeting. And they've started, and I'm sure our people have too, looking at suppliers, and some suppliers give them guidelines, other suppliers basically won't give them anything whatsoever. They just say, you'll pay what we find that you'll have to pay when we get to that point in time in the year. So if we do have anything down the road, I think with our budget, it sounds like some of the other commission members are gonna probably be meeting prior to ours. And so if I hear anything with respect to things that might be helpful to us, I'll certainly pass it on. I did attend a historical village meeting as well for Councillor Heistad, and I think there result a couple of questions there that perhaps the village will be making a presentation. I went to the fire department pancake breakfast. That was great, especially to see the eggs with sausages and the pancakes. I don't have a lot planned for this week. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I want to thank Councillor Gavin Bates for attending the village meeting. So you can hear that. Thank you, Gavin. And I did go to the zoo that last week. We went to the zoo. It's going to be great. Did the Eagles game Saturday. It was good. And I think there was about 250, 250 people there. It was good. I had to get some sausages and eggs, and it was at the fire department, so that was great. And I want to recognize our 1 year as a council being elected. That's crazy. So it's been a good experience. I think we have a great team and administration. So age-friendly this week, policing committee, and Gavin, another awesome email, W5 report on rural fire departments across the country. It was really good. I watched that last night, so that was good. And Gavin, you need to slow down in Calgary because that big circle, you guys, art is in the eye of the beholder, and it was, some people have passion for art. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and had a fairly quiet week on the town side, fairly busy week in my other life, and we won't get into that. So other than that, I haven't done too much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Messaros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I attended the Parkland Community Planning Services Special Board meeting last week. Went to the art show on Friday night, which was excellent, and popped in briefly to the Discovery Zoo light show. It was so cold. And our MPC meeting is canceled tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. So last week, visited Discovery Wildlife Park. It was great to see and exciting to think about what's coming this November. I met with Alicia Fox from RPAP just to kind of catch up as well. Went to the Transportation Committee meeting as Councillor Messaros was unable to go. And then Chris Brown from Cross Border Interview, he reached out and he's doing a highlight on municipal local government in October. So I did a podcast with him the other day. It'll be out sometime this week. So we talked about Innisfail. Certainly had an opportunity to highlight Discovery Wildlife Park Christmas show that's coming up, Festival of Trees and things like that. So that was great. I went to the grand opening of Main Street Unique on Saturday and gave them a certificate from the town and a few little things that Kara had put together. I was at the art show Friday night and also Saturday. And then this week I have the EDA ministry dinner coming up on Wednesday and the Red Deer Regional Wastewater on Friday. And unfortunately I didn't get an invite to the Fire Hall pancake breakfast. So
I'm not sure if any other councillors.
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Did you? I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's so good. No, that's great. Okay, we'll go into upcoming events. Just have somebody accept this as information, please.
Mayor Barclay, I will do that. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. And then we'll have a motion to go in camera.
I'll make the motion, Mayor Barclay, to go in camera.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried.